What's going on, guys? Today we're doing a fork rebuild on my 2008 SMR 510 Husqvarna. It's a pretty simple job, basic hand tools. These are the tools you're going to need. We're going to need oil for the grease for the forks, electrical tape, impact drivers, not necessarily necessary but helpful. Obviously your fork fluid, oil level gauge, a 19mm spanner, a 19mm socket or another 19mm spanner, screwdriver. This is the fork bleeder tool, we'll get to that later. Screwdriver again, and your fork seal driver. I'm using a PVC, works pretty good. A clean rag. So I already went ahead and took the forks off the bike, so we're going to go ahead and get started here. First thing, get your 19mm socket or spanner. Got a little crate here just to lean that on. And loosen these caps. I already pre-loosened them on the bike. Sometimes, especially if they've never been apart before, they can be a pain to loosen because up here will just spin. The whole upper fork stanchion will just spin. Go ahead and take that cap off. Once you get it loose, you can just unscrew it by hand. There is a rubber O-ring under here. Be careful of that. You don't want to tear that unless you have a replacement. Also, I forgot to say, if you have a air bleeder on top of your fork, you want to take that out and loosen all of your suspension settings, your rebound and your dampening, which I've already done. Slide the upper fork stanchion out of the way. Now this part could be a little bit tricky. Get your 19mm spanner. This you definitely need a 19mm for. Lift up, and there's a nut under this spring. It can be kind of difficult. Two people really help with this, and then you want to break them together, pull them together to loosen this cap. You can let go of that, and the top cap will just spin right off. Hold the spring down if you want while you do it so it won't go flying. Move some of these tools out of the way here. Make sure you have a clean work area, especially when you're working with forks. Okay. Now you want to lay this down in the order that it came out. So we got the spring cap, fork cap, spring cap, the actual spring. Now if you want, go ahead and take this off. It is going to have oil on it. So just take a clean rag and just wipe it off so you're not dripping oil everywhere. It's still going to drip a little bit, but set that over here. Okay. Your dampening rod, that'll slide right out. There it is. Now if you look at it, both ends I believe are the same, so it really shouldn't matter which way you put it back in, but we're going to put it back in the way it came out. Okay, now you're going to want to go ahead and drain your oil. So, let's see here. I'm trying to do everything neatly as possible. Get your oil drain pan ready. Put your finger right here because there is another spacer in there. Go ahead. This oil actually doesn't look too bad. Go ahead and drain this oil. There is another spacer. Here it comes. Right there. Again, I don't believe this matters which way it goes back in. But just lay that up here. And then go ahead and pump your cartridge up and down to get all this oil out. Sometimes if you stop in the middle and do it, more will come out. Push it in. You'll be able to tell when you get it all out. It shouldn't be hard to pull at all once all the oil's out. Okay, once you have all the fork oil out, you're going to take your screwdriver. Be very careful here. You don't want to slip and hit your chrome lower fork stanchion, because then the seals that you just replaced will leak again. So go ahead and carefully work your screwdriver in there, wiggle it back and forth. These are a little stiff. So I'm saying you got to be careful, because you don't want to slip and hit that leg. Okay, once you get it started, there it goes. Just wiggle it back and forth, slide it over, wiggle it back and forth. There it comes. Slide the dust seal out of the way. Now, so we're not making a mess here. Inside here, you should be able to see it. Inside here is a spring clip. Go ahead. Pop that out. Okay. Now, what you can do is a slide hammer action. Pull the lower and upper away from each other in one good swoop. Sometimes it takes two. So here we go. Nice one shot. Lay this down here. Drain any oil out that's in there. Good shake. Take your rag. Clean that out. Put this down here. Now, you can take the upper bushing off. Get a screwdriver. Separate the two. And slide right off. Again, you want to lay this down in the order that you take it off. Next, the lower bushing. Put that down. The washer, take note of which way the washer goes. Some are just flat washers, some have, this one has a indentation in the bottom of it that faced the seal. So go ahead and put that down. Here's your oil seal. Put that down. Your spring clip. And your dust seal. Now take your clean rag and just clean all this oil off. On the base here. Okay, so that's done. Now installing. If you do not have a seal bullet, you can take some electrical tape and these ridges right here. If you try to install a seal over these ridges without anything covering them, you will rip your brand new seal and it will leak again and you'll be doing this again. So what you want to do is just wrap the electrical tape around the fork top here to cover basically the sharp edges that will rip your seal. So go ahead and wrap it around. I like to wrap the top edge too. So we'll get up here. Go ahead, stop. Cut this. I got a knife sitting right here. It's probably pretty dangerous, but whatever. And then fold this edge over. Okay, it's all set. Okay, get some grease and slide the grease all over the electrical tape that you just put on, down the fork tube, Get that nice and greased up. Okay. Okay, so take your new seals. This is the dust seal. Make sure it matches the old one. Yep, the number might not be the same, but yep. Okay, take some oil, smear it on in there, or excuse me, grease. Go ahead and coat that pretty well. These can be a little difficult to start. The oil seal itself isn't bad. Sometimes these like to fold the lips over. So go ahead and try to start it as evenly as possible. Just like that. Slide that over. Again, we got this second ridge here to get over. Okay. I'll go ahead and slide her down. All the way down. Now, the next thing technically would be the spring clip. But this, you could slip over, and the way I use the fork driver, I don't like beating against this and then on the seal itself too, so I leave this out for now. Now you got your new oil seal, same thing, check it. Yep, look the same. You always want to face the bigger cavity. Some have a completely flat on the front, some aren't. You always want to face the bigger cavity up, facing the oil. Same thing, smear some grease in there. Get it started. Make sure you got it on the right way. This one you want to be really careful with. Okay, get her down. And slide her down. Wash it. Smaller, lower bushing. You want to inspect this on the inside. This one's good. Okay, now you got to take the tape off. Okay. Upper bushing, this one you want to check the outside of it. Go ahead, spread it, drop it, it's on. Okay, clean up your work area here. This out of the way. Now this is the fun part. So you're gonna go ahead and slide that in. Now here's your lower bushing. This you're gonna have to drive in as well. So what I like to do is you take the washer, push it up as far as you can get it. And this is where if you have a fork seal driver for this size or PVC pipe, get your PVC pipe, get her on there. Give us a little more space here. Slide that fork down. Okay, slide these up a little bit. There we go. Try to make sure they're even because you want this to go in straight. This is why the actual fork seal driver tools are nice, because they usually have little divots on them that clip into the other side, so it keeps it straight. And this is where the impact gun comes in handy, or drill. Unscrew that all the way. Okay. Slide that over, just like that. Put it together. I like to put this as low as possible. so you have enough room to clear the actual upper stanchion. Go ahead. This doesn't need to be super tight, just tight enough to hold it together. Give it one more zip. Okay. And same thing like when you took it apart, you want to slide hammer it. I like to leave my hand here for something to beat against. So go ahead and just, then you take a look inside and bushings driven up in there. Perfect, that's it. That's all it takes. Go ahead and zip this off. Yeah, it's time for a new pipe clamp. Go ahead, spread that, get that out of the way. Take your driver off. Now the oil seal. You can go ahead and slide this up. This is, you want to make sure the sides are lubed on the oil seal also, as much as possible. Slide your oil seal up. If you want, you can get it started going straight. Take your fork seal driver. Get them even. Now same technique. Same technique as you did with the oh boy, as you did with the bushing. You're going to use it as a slide hammer and slide it up to seat the seal. Get our screw here. Put that in there. Again, you want to be as low as possible with the clamp to make sure you don't damage this seal. So in case your hand's not there, and use it that way. So same thing, use a slide hammer. Beat it in. Look around. You should be able to see the circlip. What I like to do also is give it a good shot this way. Heard the sound change? That was a seal seating. Get my socket here. Okay. Zip this bad boy off. Oop, we're tightening it. No bueno. There we go. Get that out of the way. Get the seals off. Look in, make sure it's seated properly. You should be able to see the seat that the clip sits in all the way around that. You guys probably won't be able to see that, especially with the light that I have in here. Now, go ahead and put your C-clip in, your spring clip, get it started, push her in, get your screwdriver, make sure it's seated all the way in its groove. So you want to make sure that's seated well in there. Okay, it is. Now, take your dust seal and just press that into place. Just like that. Good. Okay. That's it. I like to slide it up and down. Make sure nothing's sticking. Okay, feels pretty good to me. Next, we're going to fill with oil. Okay, now we're going to fill the fork tube with oil. I'm using Maxima fork fluid. This is the high performance stuff, racing formula, 5 weight or 85 150. This is an open bottle. I just did the other fork with it off camera, so I'm going to finish this off. Go ahead and just pour in there. You hear the bubbles start to come out, start bleeding itself. as the oil makes its way past the cartridge. Okay. Get your new one. On these, each fork uses about one of these, 1 liter. A little bit less, as you saw, but you're still going to need 2. Most forks are that way. Go ahead, same thing. Dump her on in there. Don't be afraid to fill it almost to the top, because it's going to bleed out, and then you're going to have to set the oil level anyway. So go ahead, fill her on up. See the oil there? Now this is where that bleed tool came in handy. The bleed tool has different sizes. Screw her on. And pump up and down. And the purpose of this is to bleed all the air out. Once it gets stiff, that's when you know most of the air is out. You want one straight motion, up and down. We're gonna be able to tell if all the air is out. Over pumping it won't hurt. The more the better. You want all the air bubbles out. Okay, get that going for a while. After I do that, I like to let this sit for 5 minutes and let the residual air bubbles work. Okay, now we're going to set the fork oil level. What I like to do is you want this as straight as possible. So I like to use a vise. And you're not clamping this hard at all. So if you don't have soft jaws, you really don't even want to do this, but just cinch that down a little bit just to hold the fork. You want these. You want this all the way up. No spring, none of this stuff in here. Okay? Take your fork, oil level set. And for this bike, it's 100 millimeters. But every bike is different on the actual oil level. You can play with the oil level to set the air gap to different depths to adjust your tension for different weights and whatnot. I already have this preset at 100 millimeters, but we're just gonna go double check. And we are at 10 centimeters, which is 100 millimeters. So go ahead and get your oil bottle here. And while you're holding that, you put that in flat on the fork cap, the top of the fork stanchion. Hold that and you just pull. And it sucks all the excess water, or excuse me, oil out of the fork. There it goes. Nothing but air. Okay. Put that to the side. Now we're done. Now, with the oil, we're going to take our damper rod, slide that in. You can put your spacer in. What I like to do is I like to pull this out and then reattach your bleeder. If I can find it, right here. Reattach your bleeder. Oh, wrong side. Okay. Because now you're going to slip the spring in, and you want to be able to catch the bleeder like that. Otherwise, you're going to make a mess. Okay. Okay. Pull that out. Now you want to unscrew the bleeder, but hold the cartridge with your fingers in between here Put your plastic spacer on. Now get your cap and thread your cap on. Okay. Now you want to make sure this nut, this blue nut, is all the way down tight against this plastic spacer in the spring. So go ahead and thread that down by hand all the way. Okay. Let's thread it on there by hand. Now, what you're going to want to do is get your 19 millimeter and your 19 millimeter again. Now you're going to want to tighten this. So we're going to slide this down here. Take this off. Use this. Put it up here. Again, this part is really helpful with two people. Get your spring on. You're going to want to tighten. Try this again. Pull that down. Get it on. Hold it down. Get your cap. Excuse me, your wrench. And you're going to want to tighten that. You don't want to over tighten this. Just snug it up. There it goes. Okay. I'll confirm that's tight. The whole damper is spinning, not just a nut. Go ahead and let that up. Whole damper is spinning. Okay, you can see it spinning there. Slide this bad boy up. Turn it till you hear click, counterclockwise, click. Tighten it up. What the? You want to compress this. Make sure it moves smoothly. No binding. Doesn't look like we got any leaks. Clean it up with a rag. That's basically it, and you are done. Really nothing to it. Super simple.